The Honourable Shane Mallard.
Drink of water?
Yeah, thank you. Mr President, I move that the following address be adopted and presented by the whole House to the Governor in reply to the speech which Her Excellency has been pleased to make to both Houses of Parliament. To Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, Officer of the Order of Australia, Queen's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales and the Commonwealth of Australia. May it please Your Excellency, we, the members of the Legislative Council of the State of New South Wales, in Parliament assembled, desire to express our thanks for Your Excellency's speech and express our loyalty to Australia and the people of New South Wales. We assure Your Excellency that our earnest consideration will be given to the measures to be submitted to us and that we will faithfully carry out the important duties entrusted to us by the people of New South Wales. We join Your Excellency in the hope that our labours may be so directed as to advance the best interests of all sections of the community. Thank you, Mr President. May I join with others in firstly congratulating you some weeks later on your well-deserved re-election to the position of President. I'm honoured to be the first speaker on the reply to the Governor, the Honourable Margaret Beazley AOQC, addressed to the joint sitting of Parliament on the 7th of May 2019. I rise to speak in one of the first policy discussions and reflections in this newly elected chamber, given most other debates to date have been more of a mechanical machinery nature in the House. And important they are for setting the parameters and expectations and accountabilities for members in this chamber and the government in the coming term. Mr President, the New South Wales Liberal Nationals government has been re-elected for an historic third term. Not since 1971 has a coalition government been elected to serve a third term in its own right. And on that occasion, the Askin government was elected by a one-seat majority. The 2019 Berejiklian government has a two-seat majority, Mr President, in the other place. So, as you can see, we are making steady progress over the intervening 48 years. In 1971, many, but not all members of this House were not even yet born. And I was in first class being taught by a wonderful teacher called Mrs McAlpine at South Penrith Public School, and I was beginning my proud public school education. And this place, I thought, was very much different back in 1971. If members will allow me to indulge my love of political history, and this contribution may be of interest to the newer members and perhaps some of the older members of the House. In 1971, whilst the re-elected Askin government in the other place luxuriated it in a one-seat majority, in this place there were 60 members in this chamber, each serving a 12-year term, with a quarter of the House being elected every 3 years. And of course, from 1934 to the democratic reforms of 1978, the election of the 15 members of this place every 3 years was not conducted by the people of New South Wales, but by the members of the Legislative Assembly voting in their chamber and the members of the Legislative Council voting in this chamber. It was quite a closed workshop. At the 1971 election, there were 16 Liberal members and 11 Country Party members in this place. That makes 27. And there were 27 members who sat on the other side for the Labor Party. So it's 27 all, Mr President. And there were 4 independent members. You can see the parallel. And I might add, as an observation, there were only 6 women in the chamber, 3 each for the government and Labor. That's only 10% of the chamber. Not enough then, and still not representative enough today. So I think there are some interesting parallels for this place at the 57th Parliament with that Askin 1971 Parliament. However, the parallels with the Askin government will end there, as I would like to now take a moment to acknowledge our state's first female-elected Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Gladys Berejiklian MP, and congratulate her on her hard-earned win. The Premier stands out as a global beacon for modern Australia in so many ways: multicultural Australia, public school system educated, and a woman leader. A role model for so many young women in our community, a role model for so many in our community. The Premier worked tirelessly on his campaign, and her work ethic, her dedication and her commitment stands unchallenged. We're proud to have her as our leader and the Premier of our great state. Mr President, let me say from the outset that this will not be a speech of hubris or boastful of our re-election. Far from it, nor will it celebrate the historic coalition victory at the recent federal election, returning the Scott Morrison government with an increased majority as well. No doubt others will take time to reflect on these matters. I do acknowledge the great honour and the responsibility that the people of New South Wales have bestowed upon those of us on this side of the chamber. And I acknowledge the democratic outcome of this place as evident in the diversity of the members elected.
Thank you. Can I ask the member to pause for just one moment, if you wouldn't mind? Can I take this opportunity on behalf of all members to welcome into the gallery student leaders from high schools in New South Wales who are attending the Secondary Schools Leadership Program conducted by the Parliamentary Education Unit. You're all most welcome. We are now dealing with the Governor's speech in reply. The honourable member has the call.
Stay in school, kids.
I'll enjoy reading it.
Yes, welcome to the Legislative Council. I acknowledge the democratic outcome of this place as evident in the diversity of the members elected. The government members are aware that in order to continue our program that builds on our vision to make a real and lasting difference to the people of New South Wales will require cooperation, consultation and goodwill from all members in this chamber. I take this moment to pause and congratulate those members newly elected to this place and those re-elected, and welcome back some familiar faces of the continuing members. I also note the departure of some former members, those that departed by choice or those absent by political fortune, and I wish them well in their future endeavours. I now turn to the Governor's speech, which I thought an appropriately restrained tone outlined the government's achievements to date, our election commitments and a vision following the successful election. But just before I turn to the Governor's speech, I'd also like to congratulate Her Excellency on her appointment as the Governor of New South Wales. Her Excellency comes to the post with a huge pool of goodwill and support from her career in the law. I'm aware, as many are in this place, that of Her Excellency's previous roles in the community, many unsung but acknowledged by those she has assisted. And we know how highly regarded she is in the legal profession. The warmth and enthusiasm demonstrated at the parliamentary opening reaffirms that again New South Wales has made a distinguished choice for Governor. I would also like to take this time to acknowledge and thank the former Governor of New South Wales, the Honourable David Hurley, for his service and commitment to the people of New South Wales, and wish him all the best as he takes up the vital role of Governor-General in Canberra. Our state is proud to see him become Governor-General, and we know that he will serve our nation with the same distinction as he did as the Governor of New South Wales. Now, turning to the Governor's address, Her Excellency outlined the government's vision for the future of this state, a vision that was endorsed by the people of New South Wales at the state election. I'd like to quote from the opening passage of Her Excellency's speech to remind members of the new government's agenda. Quote, "This government builds on the vision, hard work and determination demonstrated during the 55th and 56th terms of Parliament. I'm advised that before the 2019 state general election, the government set out a plan for New South Wales to lock in the state's strong economy, keep the budget in surplus and help businesses create jobs, take the pressure off families by helping ease the cost of living and delivering better services, fix our roads and transport network to ease congestion and make it quicker for people to travel around, invest more than ever in health so that every person has high-quality health care when they need it most, and invest more than ever in schools to give all children in New South Wales the best start in life. This is the agenda the government put to the people of this state, and it's the basis upon which it was elected." I think, that's the end of the quote, I think that all members could agree that, subject to the fine print, we all support those noble objectives. It will be how we get there that will test the purpose and perhaps the relevancy of this House in the coming years. The re-election of the Liberal National Government for a historic third term is built upon 8 years of hard work and reforms. The electorate acknowledges that and also understood that 8 years is not long enough to complete the task, the huge task that we had set ourselves. In this regard, our election slogan, "Let's get it done, New South Wales," resonated with that sentiment. It was criticised as not being Obama-esque. It was criticised as not being Obama-esque vision statement. But behind that slogan is a vision for New South Wales. And we're already delivering on that promise. How good is the North West Metro? On Sunday, how good is it? On Sunday, the 26th of May 2019, the New South Wales Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, and the Minister for Transport, Andrew Constance, officially opened the North West Metro, the first stage of the Sydney Metro system, Australia's biggest public transport project, with 120,000 people riding for free on the opening day, nearly double what was expected. The hard work and the discipline of this government has paid off, with the driverless automated train line opening on time and more than $1 billion under budget. This infrastructure project will transform lives and give countless opportunities to the people of New South Wales into the future. On Monday of this week, the first day of operating as a public transport system, around 21,000 people travelled on the Metro North West line in the morning, which was higher than the government's expectation of around 17,000 passengers. With an initial frequency of train services every 5 minutes, during peak periods, the Metro line can carry about 17,000 passengers per hour. When asked about the North West Metro by the Sydney Morning Herald, one commuter said that it used to take an hour and 20 minutes to get to work at Rhodes, but now the new line meant it would be less than 1 hour, making a huge difference to his daily commute and saving over 20 minutes, which he could spend with the family. The huge response and success of the new metro even scored a positive media from the rather critical Sydney Morning Herald. The people have spoken with their feet, and woe anyone who ignores them. And this is only the first blue ribbon cutting event coming over in the coming years, as other critical transport infrastructure projects come online, including the problem dog CBD East Light Rail, noting daytime testing of trams is now well underway. Anyone who travels on M4 East is eagerly awaiting the opening of Stage 2 of WestConnex any week now. And let's reflect upon how we got to this position, the envy of all the states and the Commonwealth Government. In 8 years, we have taken New South Wales from the last performing state in the nation to first. We made New South Wales #1 again. Our first term in government under Premier Barry O'Farrell was about fixing the state's finances. We fixed the budget and we paid off all the debts. We supported businesses to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, an estimated 400,000, and delivering the lowest unemployment in New South Wales ever. Our second term in government under Premier Mike Baird was built on the back of asset recycling, including leasing of the poles and wires and undertaking the largest investment in infrastructure in Australia's history, with major projects across the state, including $90 billion currently on the books. At the same time, we have increased the state's assets to a record level of $250 billion. Our third term in government under Premier Berejiklian is about delivering what matters most to the community and the people of New South Wales. This government has rolled out the most ambitious infrastructure program in the nation, and we are now focused on getting the job done and delivering real benefits to families and individuals across New South Wales. The coalition government will help deliver better social outcomes for the most vulnerable and quality of opportunity for people across the state, no matter their background or where they live. With strong fundamentals now in place after 2 terms in government, we can now focus on the most difficult problems that our community faces, including those which have driven intergenerational disadvantage. The Premier has hit the ground running with the restructure of the Cabinet and the ministries to align with the government's new agenda to improve the lives of everyday people in our communities. Now, as a Western Sydney boy, it would be remiss of me not to mention the great transformation being undertaken in our West, one of the government's many and ongoing achievements that I am most proud of. This transformation is happening right before our eyes and is as a result of the investment by the coalition over several governments. Western Sydney is currently experiencing a boom it has never seen before. At the heart of that boom is the Western Sydney Nancy Bird Walton Airport and the ripple effect of industry and services that it has created. The potential for Western Sydney and its people over the next 10 to 20 years is truly boundless. At the centre of this potential is a new city supported by the construction of the new Western Sydney Airport that will connect the region and the people of the Western Sydney to the world. An airport city that will include an advanced manufacturing and industrial hub, creating 200,000 jobs in the fastest growing industries of the future, serviced by 2 nearby vibrant cities vying for their stake in the future, Liverpool and Penrith, both undergoing airport-related investment, which whether it be in major road upgrades, new rail proposals or in health. Liverpool Hospital sits central to a new health precinct with research centres like the Ingham Institute, teaching and university partnerships. It is currently subject to a $1 billion expansion and is perfectly positioned to service the new airport and Aerotropolis into the future. And Penrith Nepean Hospital, where of course I was born, similarly is undergoing a $1 billion redevelopment and expansion. Western Sydney is a focus of development and growth for both the Australian and the New South Wales governments, already attracting public investment of more than $20 billion across transport, health, education, infrastructure. A number...
Draining the life out of the place.
Yes.
But it was just
A number of the new government reforms excite me, including a senior minister for customer service. The indefatigable, love that word. Thank you, Minister. Minister Victor Dominello handcrafted this challenging role. He has led a revolution in customer service through Service New South Wales with a 97% customer approval rating. And I note this has now been copied by the new federal government with the creation of Service Australia. A great credit to Minister Dominello. Now, with his new overarching responsibility for customer service, he will no doubt revolutionise the state government and its multitude of interactions with the community. One reform that is another passion of mine is parks and public spaces. Public space is crucial to the social, economic, political and environmental life of our country towns, our regions, our suburbs and our cities. It goes hand in hand with good urban planning. It is visionary to have a Minister for Public Spaces as part of the planning cluster, and the best minister for this challenge is, of course, the Honourable Rob Stokes, whose background, profession and passion for good planning is unrivalled. This is a minister that is dedicated to the renewal of green space and creative thinking about public spaces, planning for the future population, which the Greater Sydney Region Plan expects to reach 8 million by 2056. The government wants every Sydneysider to have green space within walking distance of their home. This involves retrofitting areas to make them more usable and attractive. The minister plans to create $500 million of value from his $150 million budget to increase open space in Sydney. The minister plans to buy up forgotten land across Sydney to create new parks and playgrounds, as well as crucial linkages between green spaces and cycleways to meet the needs of the growing population of Sydney. He plans to reclaim gaps between development sites and riparian corridors to set aside for drainage and find an interim use for public land set aside for utilities like water pipelines or future motorways. Most of that land was already owned publicly, and the priority for acquisition would be sites that connect areas of green space. Access to quality open space and public space is frankly, in my view, a basic human right. It leads to healthier, more active children, healthier both physically and mentally for all the community. Greater community interaction in public spaces creates greater community harmony and reduces isolation, which was referred to in the Honourable Damien Tudorhope's maiden speech last night about isolation. I think that's public space is critical to that. And of course it supports cleaner waterways, increases biodiversity, reduced heat sinks and healthier environment. Mr President, the Minister also wants to use public space to promote active exercise, including cycling, walking and running. He wants to work with councils and his colleagues, the Transport Minister, to use public space to promote active transport, and he points out that roads themselves are public spaces and not solely for one use. I want to quote from the Minister just simply. He said, "We need to use open space to promote alternatives like safe cycling, running and walking because there's a real public health benefit to this." And I think we all agree with that. We have all moved on. As an advocate all my public life for active transport, including safer cycling infrastructure, I look forward to real progress in this area. Mr President, this election campaign was a tough one, but one at which I enjoyed. Personally, I was focused on the Western Sydney seats centred around Penrith. I congratulate the Honourable Stuart Ayres for retaining his seat against a huge and confident, perhaps overconfident, campaign by those opposite, including a well-resourced union campaign. The people of Penrith backed Stuart and they backed our government. I congratulate all the candidates and teams I work with who put in a great effort to support our re-election as government. In particular, I want to pay tribute to 4 candidates whom I worked very closely with, and they are Mr Owen Laffin in the Blue Mountains, Belinda Hill in Londonderry, Paul Zadro in Liverpool and Alexander Andruska in Heffron. Each of those candidates put in an energetic election effort, taking up the fight on behalf of the party and the government. 2 of the seats had healthy swings to the government. It was a pleasure and a privilege to work with each of them and their campaign teams. Mr President, on Sunday morning after the election, I, like most people in this chamber, numb with exhaustion and zombie-like, switched on the ABC Insiders program. Switched on the ABC Insiders program to hear Barry Cassidy say,
Still apologising to people for his conduct.
"Well, there's been an election in New South Wales. We've woken up and nothing much has changed. But in fact, an awful lot has happened." End of quote. And I thought that Barry Cassidy summed it up quite well. I commend the motion to the House.